Hey, what's up, everybody? Platform Disciple here, and today I am going to be reviewing a number of balance changes that were made in the recent patch. There's a pretty significant number of cards that got altered, and I'm going to go through them one by one, discuss what I think about them, as well as very briefly gloss over what the design team used as justification to make those changes. But I will also have in the link of the description a link in the description to the Discord channel where you can go look at the patch notes. It's under the patch notes text channel on the official Infinity Wars Discord so that you can look at things yourself in full. But to start things off, one of the most significant components of the reworks are looking at Overseer's cards. Because historically, Overseers had a couple archetypes that were good, interesting archetypes within Overseers, but didn't play well with other factions. And that would be Angel Tribal, and that didn't play well with other factions just because there weren't really that many Angels in other factions. And the Champion mechanic, which has been changed a couple times over the history of the game, but at this point, Champions have been removed. It's now those cards that used to focus on champions now focus on unique characters, and the hope here is that Overseers will be able to have their strategies mix more reasonably with other factions. So, just to start things off, Souls Loyalist. There we go. So now when Souls Loyalist deploys, all unique characters you control in play, hand, and deck permanently get +1 attack. So that's a change from before. Now it cares about unique characters. I don't have any strong thoughts on this card. Honestly, I think all of the Overseers changes are pretty straightforward and make sense. They just play better with other factions in a more reasonable way. I don't necessarily think I can predict what kind of decks will come out of this, but definitely a wanted change. Okay, next we have Strength of Leadership. Target unique character gets +8/+8 for 3 cost. I think this is pretty nice. Before, I believe it only could target a champion. This opens up the opportunity to target any unique character, and because it's 2 Overseers purity, you could potentially be bringing in a unique character from a different faction to take advantage of that. Forerunner of Champions. I think this is maybe one of the bigger changes here. So Forerunner of Champions now scales not with champions entering play, but instead scales with unique characters entering play, which is a lot easier to satisfy that condition. However, it doesn't scale infinitely. It only gets +3/+3 once. So this card is essentially a 1-cost 7/7 where you do have to kind of play around that condition. Immediate reaction is, I don't think this necessarily changes how you play triple Overseers that much, or at least how I played it, where I would run 2 Forerunner of Champions. And then, let's just take a peek. Do I have that deck? I don't have that deck built. I would run, there's a 1-cost Angel, whose name I am forgetting, and we're gonna skip that. The point is, Forerunner of Champions didn't necessarily benefit that much from being able to scale infinitely, because you didn't run that high density of champions in the deck. So I think the card is about as good as it was before, but now you have the potential to run it in like a flamed on Overseers deck where you can reliably like do Clore turn 1 and then turn 2 Forerunner of Champions, or some mix and match of that. Good change. Okay, Champion's Herald. Okay. So this card used to allow you to cheat out champions and get them into play. Now it is letting you get unique characters at a discount and with haste. So they can enter attack, defense, or support zone. Initial reaction seems pretty good. It's just a question of what do you benefit from giving haste, taking into account the fact that you're already double Overseer's purity. Like, what one purity unique character are you trying to sneak out into the battlefield with another faction? Somebody else will have to answer that question, or it's a play testing thing. It's just a question of what decks evolve. Next, we have Champion's Companion. This card used to give all champions haste. Now it gives all angels you control haste. But the card is significantly more expensive. It costs 7 now. I think this card's bad. I think the old version of the card was maybe okay, but I think this is bad. That paying 7 for a 10/10 with flying that doesn't immediately affect the board is not great. Anyways, that's fine. Not every card needs to be fantastic, but that one is one I am not excited about. I'm not, like, lamenting the change, because I don't think I cared that much about the card before, but now it's exceptionally bad. Okay, Champion's Attendant. When you deploy it, you can overcharge it. If you do target unique character, gets +5/+5. It used to only target champions, I believe. Seems okay. It's not a card I'm in any rush to try to use, but it is 1 purity, so you do have a little more flexibility with what other unique characters you can bring in from other factions. So I think the card does have some potential, and I know we don't have draft yet, but I read this card and think, oh, this seems like a good value piece for draft, because it's kind of like a 5 cost 15, 5 cost 15/15 in a sense. Okay, and last card for Overseers is Fiery Ascension. This card didn't change much. I think it may just have added the becomes unique text. It allows you to get a character in your hand, flying in charge and +4 attack. I think it's a cool card, but it just hasn't changed very much, so there's not really much to say there. Okay, next we're looking at some of the Flame Dawn changes, and the Flame Dawn changes, this is something that I've discussed on this channel many years ago, and it's I still think kind of the case that this is true, but a lot of Flame Dawn's power really comes in 1 and 2 purity, that the 3 purity cards don't have a whole lot going for them, and also high cost Flame Dawn cards or slower Flame Dawn cards don't have a lot going for them, because so much of the faction's focus is being aggressive that it's hard to justify diluting your strategy by relying on those other cards. And some of these changes have been made to try to push the needle a little further in the other direction, so that people can get a little more creative with what kind of decks they build with Flame Dawn. So we've got Hilderic. This is a triple Flame Dawn big bomb, and historically the card had the issue of it comes out late and relies on like quite a bit of setup. The setup here is a little easier now. So the setup is his cost is reduced by the number of characters you control that have attacked this game divided by 3. So every 3 characters you attack with reduces his cost by 1. And while he's in the assault zone, all characters in your assault zone have +5/+0. And if I'm reading that right, I believe that means he affects himself, but I have not looked into that yet. So the change here is he's got slightly better stats, I believe, and he's a little easier to get out. But what I will say here is, I think this was a great change and is a move in the right direction. I still think the card's not very good, because It is a late game Flame Dawn card that scales with the number of characters you still have in play. That's the all characters in your Assault Zone getting +5/+0. If you've made it to like turn 9 or 10 with Flame Dawn, the reason you've made it that far and haven't won yet is because your opponent has been defending effectively or has board wiped you. And I don't know if this really fixes that problem. I could imagine running him as a one of. But only time will tell. It's hard for me to judge how effective this card is because I can't visualize clearly how many characters I usually attack with in a game. So I'm not sure how quickly he builds up that cost reduction. It might be faster than I'm actually thinking. Okay, next we have this. Very wanted change. This used to be kind of like a glass cannon where you'd overcharge her, she'd get a bunch of extra attacks, and that's still the case, but now she's got a lot more girth. She's got a big 20 bottom. Used to be 10, and the problem was that she could maybe attack many times, but if anything was defending, she'd just die because she would attack with the same defender several times and just die. So the 20 health there makes the card do what it's supposed to do a little better without having to completely remove everything from your opponent's defense zone. It also makes it a little more tolerable to play this card and only overcharge it once or twice instead of like 5 times or something outrageous, which is honestly a little bit much to ask for when you're in double Flame Dawn or more. At the 8th turn of the game, you usually have emptied a large portion of your hand. So, wanted change. Don't know if it makes her good. It certainly makes her way better. Very happy about that. Fiery Wish. This is Flame Dawn's Wish card. Frankly, I'd never really used this card much before, so I don't really remember all of the modes. I know some of the modes have stayed the same. So it's all characters in your hand and deck get +4, +0, and charge until end of the turn. You pick one of these. That mode seems cool. Hard for me to judge how good that is, because if you're in triple Flame Dawn and you spend your 5th turn to set up for your 6th turn, like, is it really worth playing this versus like the motorcycle guy? Flame Dawn players know what I'm talking about. Don't remember the name here. Yeah, Cavalry Paladin. Like, would you rather put 12 power that's difficult for your opponent to kill into the Assault Zone, or take a turn off to set up for turn 6? Generally speaking, I would rather just play another 5-drop instead of Fiery Wish. But we'll continue. So it also has target character in the Assault Zone gains Indestructible and Multi-Strike 2. That's a new mode on this card. That's pretty nice. That mode alone makes the card a little better. And target character cannot be blocked this turn. That's still on there. And that effect's nice. Hard to judge. Not a huge fan of the card still. I really like putting power or attack into the Assault Zone, like in the form of bodies that stay there for multiple turns. And spending potentially a whole turn not putting more characters out can be rough, but the effects are powerful situationally, so maybe it can get there. Okay, next we have Proctol. Another nice change here. So Proctol's just got buffed. The change here is that Proctol now has pay for, exhaust, kill target character in the support zone, in addition to just being able to snipe for 1. I like this because Proctol has always been kind of like a card that you could do a build around deck, but just does not have enough potency to be worth building around. This is a little bit better now, because now you can reliably kill characters instead of just like poke at things. Like, she used to just go kill Brings Life Bypassings and Wealthy Nobles. Now she has the potential to actually kill some more significant threats. Okay. Iberian's Apprentice. Significant change. This card used to just buff itself every time it attacks. Now it buffs itself and all of your other characters, I think this is actually pretty good now. And it's 1 purity, so you could potentially put this in like a deck that runs a bunch of token generators. So like there's a few different ways you can play with this card. It's a lot more interesting, and I think it's a lot more powerful. Really like that change. Glory of the Empire has been removed from the game, or at least the name has been changed. It's now Aubade, Heart of the Empire. So this card used to have this effect, but was like a one-off, and now it's a location. So I think this card's pretty good now, because you can deploy this pretty early, or you can deploy it later at a low cost and still put other stuff on the board. And it potentially makes your whole team a lot stronger. As long as they can continue to hit the fortress, they get +3 attack. So very nice, very cool new card to play around with. A little more than just a balance change. It's like we got a whole new card. Okay, so that's it for Flame Dawn. Next we have the Mega units. The Mega and the Ultra unit situation. I never really use these cards, so it's hard for me to talk too much about them. But now, Mega Unit 1, you can pilot without paying a cost. That was basically one of the biggest reasons I never used these cards, is I never wanted to deal with a pilot thing. Now it's easier to pilot them, so that's cool. Next we have Mega Unit 2. I should also mention, these have been reduced to 1 purity. They used to be 2 purity, I think. So you have the potential to run them in a more efficient, like, Reanimator deck, which is cool. So Mega Unit 2, cost is reduced to 10. I don't remember what it was before, but apparently it was more than 10, and that's a really big change, because being below 10 means you don't have to cheat it into play or ramp it into play. You can just reliably play it. So that's always a huge change, going from above 10 to 10 or lower. Next, its activated ability can only be activated from the battlefield, and it's been reduced to a 22/22. I believe I don't know if it used to be able to activate its ability from the command zone, but anyways, moving on. I don't have much to say about these Mega units, because I feel like historically they've been kind of a meme. Maybe they'll be a little better now. And then we have Mega Unit 3, which is 9 cost. So you can kind of go Mega Unit 1, Mega Unit 3, Mega Unit 2, in that order, 8, 9, 10, for your turn setup. It's a bit much to ask for, but that curve can happen. Its ability has been changed to sacrifice an artificial character until end of turn. Mega Unit 3 gains Unstoppable, and when this enters combat for the first time this turn, this gains Indestructible until the end of combat. That Indestructible ability is really nice. We already have that on different Genesis Industries cards, so it's cool to see it built into one of the existing bombs. But having to sacrifice an artificial character to do that is a bit rough, especially for a 9 cost 16/16. 16/16 is not really a fantastic stat line. But if you're into the Mega Unit strategy and you're trying to live out those dreams, it's quite a bit better now. I'm just trying to find the card that does that Mega Unit effect, the Indestructible. While we're here, I should say, I think it would be very helpful if there was a easier way to filter collection from here. Like some of the filtering abilities that we see in the deck builder could be moved over here as well. When are we gonna find it? Here we go. Shield generator. So this only requires you to be one further into Genesis, and it's harder to deal with because it's an artifact. but it also gives that first time it enters combat, gain indestructible until end of combat effect. It costs a lot less. You don't have to sacrifice artificial characters. So I'm not too excited about the mega unit changes, but maybe somebody is. It certainly opens the opportunity to build some fun, weird decks that try to do funny things with them. Okay, next we have Cultiverer changes. Notably here, Cultiverer used to be able to destroy artifacts and locations, and there's a movement away from that. The team is trying to better regulate what each faction can do, and destroying locations has no longer, or destroying artifacts and locations is no longer really a part of Cultiverer. So Oblivion used to kill everything, including artifacts and locations. Now it just kills characters. It also costs 4 less. I think that costing 4 less is a really, really big deal. That is, so I think this is actually a buff to the card most of the time, but it helps make it feel a less like crappy for somebody who's relying on those locations and artifacts, like getting hosed by a card that somebody is running just because it's good, as opposed to running to specifically target those types of cards. So nice change there. Next we have Annihilate. Same thing. Annihilate used to be able to target artifacts and locations. Now it can only target characters. However, it now kills all other characters with the same name. I think this is definitely, most of the time this is a nerf, because one of the whole reasons you'd run Annihilate is that it was extremely versatile. It no longer has that versatility. I think the card's still good, but it's good in a different way. It's less of an auto-include, I think. I also will comment here that the artwork no longer fits the effect, because the artwork features the destruction of a artifact or a location, and not a character, and now the effect does not do that. Just a minor little complaint there. Okay. Next we've got Mysterious Box. This card was just really good. Honestly, I think any Overseers deck would... Any deck running 1 pip of Overseers would run this. Now it costs 1 more. So it went from being like an auto-include to now if you're including this in your deck, you probably have something a little more specific you want to do with it. Whereas before it was just like, you could include it because it could remove a defender, could remove potential threats for a turn. You could flicker like Sackless or something else with a powerful enters the deployed zone effect. It still does all those things, but now you have to plan a little more in deck building if it's worth including. So it stings that this card got changed. It was a favorite of mine, but I think it's still good. It's just less universally good. Okay, next we've got Acolyte of the Altar. Acolyte of the Altar now sacrifices instead of kills a character, which is notable because there were a few cards that Acolyte of the Altar could kind of like cheese. I think it might have been like Vengeful Spirit or something like that. Yeah, when he would die to a kill effect, he would get +5/+5. This is one of the... There's a few cards that interact like this, but now Acolyte of the Altar can't just be used to kill your own guy over and over. It now works more like the card I think was kind of intended to work, which is that you are actually sacrificing the character to get that cost reduction, whereas recently it had been used not to get the cost reduction, but actually just to kill your own characters with that specific kill keyword. All right, next, Tibat. Tibat's been changed so that he can't be flickered to recycle his effect. So if you Mysterious Box him, he doesn't go do his thing again. Or if you reanimate him from the graveyard, he doesn't do his thing. I think this is a very reasonable change, very reasonable nerf. I think the card's still very powerful. I will say that I think it's very difficult for a new player to gather from the card text that that's the way it works. That it says when you deploy Tibat, as opposed to when he enters the deployed area, which is a subtle phrase change, which is supposed to convey that he has to be coming from your hand. So I agree with the change in terms of like the balance and the effect. I just don't know how you phrase it in a way that's clear to new players. I think it would be appropriate to maybe say the first time he enters the deployed area or something. I'm not sure. It's just not really clear as is, and that's my biggest concern with that change. Okay. Denial of Surprise. Cost got increased by 1. Still does the same thing, which it kills all enemy characters on the battlefield that were deployed this turn. The reason this was changed is that the card is pretty strong at covering up Veror's weakness to charge characters and other characters that Veror can't target directly. I don't care too much about this change. It's definitely a really significant nerf. I didn't really play this card before. I think that this card is very skill testing. That I think the overwhelming majority of players aren't going to be able to leverage this card to its maximal effect, and it's only good in certain matchups. So I thought it was okay before, because to take advantage of the card, you had to have a lot of game knowledge, and you had to be able to play very, very effectively, know what your opponent was going to do. I think this card is now only useful in like best of 3 situations where you can sideboard it in or out, and currently best of 3 is not built into Infinity Wars. It's the format used for tournaments, but it's not like in the main game. So I don't really like this change too much, because I think that a card is very well designed if a very good player can make powerful use of it, but a bad player can't. That's still the case here, but I think that at this point, the card is approaching being unplayable even if you are a very good player. So, it is what it is. Not a huge issue, but not too excited about that. Okay, Cottontail. Cottontail has changed a little bit. Cottontail now is an 18/18. I think it used to be a 16/16. It also can shoot things for free. However, it can only do it once per turn and while deployed. I think this is a buff to the card. I think the card was not good enough before. Now the card, I think, is a pretty serious threat to other mid-range or even aggro decks. So very happy about this. I don't know if it's enough for the card to get like a whole lot of play, but I think it'll get more play because frankly, it was at 0 play before, and this is a more interesting and better card. Carrion Creeper got buffed. Carrion Creeper now has 3 more health. I don't know if this is enough to save the card, because the whole reason I think people were using this card was that you could kill one of your characters in the command zone to run interesting reanimator strategies, or infested abomination strategies. You can't do that anymore, and because of that, it is basically it's just a guy, and as a guy, I don't think he's a great guy. He's okay. He's all right. He's fine. I won't be using him, but it's not that bad of a card. It's just not very interesting anymore. Okay, next. Dragon of the Autumn Wind. This card used to be like the best finisher for any dragon strategy or any Warpath ramp strategy, and it might still be, if I'm being honest with you. The big change here is it doesn't have haste. It does still draw you cards when you deploy it, so it's not like it doesn't do something the turn you deploy it, but it no longer can just hose your opponent by going straight into the assault zone, or even straight into the defense zone and potentially eating a bunch of attackers. It also draws 2 non-dragon characters, which is notable because it can't draw other Dragons of the Autumn Wind or other bomb dragons that you can deploy, but also it can't draw non-character cards, and I think that's the bigger nerf here. Rather than non-dragon is that it's character specific, because now you have to have a significant enough number of characters in your deck for this to be important, and also those characters have to be good at that stage in the game. Like if he's just drawing you Wealthy Nobles and Bring Life bypassing, that's not too fantastic. I think the card's still very good, actually. Good nerf. I think the card is still good, still interesting. It's just a little less ridiculous. Okay, next we have One of Many Exhumed. I'm thrilled about this change. It costs 1 less now. The card went from, I think, unplayable to actually, I think this is really, really good. Because One of Many, its stat line, an 8/9, is just not great enough at 3 cost. And this guy's a 7/9, so he's not great enough, but the mill 2 is very good for sleepers. Very happy about this change. Hopefully it's enough to get it played a little more. I think it's nice. I think it's going to go from 0 play to some play, which is a good place to be. Okay, Aether Adept. Wait. Not this. Do I not own Aether Adept? One sec. It's the card. Okay. We're gonna skip that one. There's a list in the patch notes for a card that I am no longer sure exists. Okay, so well, let's not worry too much about that. What card could it be referring to, I wonder? Because it's not Aether Acolyte. Oh wait, no, it is. Okay, so the patch notes mislabeled this card. Aether Adept, it's a 4/4 now instead of a 5/5. That's fine. That's totally fine. Makes this card a little less powerful. But, you know. Yeah, I don't think there's much to say about this change. The card's just it's still good. It's a very small nerf because it still grows. So you have to play one more ability card for it to reach its old status. Okay, next. Tigra the Insane. Tigra now only does the hand swap if he's on the battlefield. This is a really significant nerf because it means that he has to be vulnerable to destroy effects if you're playing him from the command zone onto the battlefield. So somebody can actually counterplay it. It also means that you can't play it from hand and reliably have it trigger its effect because you'll have to move it into the battlefield. Completely reasonable change. It makes the card a little less miserable to play against in the control matchup, while still being, I think, reasonably powerful. Okay, Empath Battery. The effect on this card is significantly more complicated now. It used to be it just gave you 1 health and 1 morale every time a character entered your deploy area, and if it was a human, you gained 2 health and 2 morale. Now it gains double the amount of health and morale, so 2 health and 2 morale, or 4 health and 4 morale, but you have to have put 2 or more characters into your deployed area, and it can only do this once a turn. I think this card is bad now, like objectively bad. I think it was okay before, but now I think it's bad. It is what it is. I'm surprised that card got targeted. But whatever. Okay, Purification Stone. This card got changed so that it can no longer target artifacts, locations, or command zone, and that's a welcomed change because it did some really awkward things when it could target locations and unique artifacts, because you'd have a card that was just on the battlefield, or you'd have a deployed card that just did nothing. And if it was unique, like if somebody purified your Omnitron, you couldn't play another Omnitron because you already have an Omnitron, even though it's one that's been like completely neutered. And also, it's not really fun to have all of your commanders purified in one turn. So I think this is reasonable. I think the card's still pretty decent. That covers all our balance changes. There were a lot of them. And I'm really interested to see how some of them play out and hear some of your reactions about those balance changes. So feel free to let me know what you think in the comments. And hopefully I will get some time to stream again soon. But Thanksgiving's coming up, so if you don't see me, that's where I am. And until next time, everybody, have a good one.